So after I posted the video showing you how to get some good marquetry veneers off turning blanks, I had my follower Mark ask me a bunch of questions. Don't try to decipher what either of us is saying in that, because this is just riddled with typos. But I think the gist of it is that he wants me to show how I go about taking these veneers and putting them onto a panel, so I'm going to show you that right now. This is a box I'm working on. It's made out of a beautiful piece of graft line English walnut. This side is English walnut and this side is Clara walnut. Now what I need for this box now is a piece of thin plywood to fit in a groove that I'm going to route along the inner edge of the top of this box. So what I've done is resawed off 2 veneer strips from this turning blank. Now, I've cross-cut these because I need to make a wider panel for this box, right? And now what I want to do is take these 4 pieces and arrange them in a pattern that is most pleasing to me. So I've decided ahead of time that I want this to be a book match. So what I'm going to do is take these 2 and put them together like that. I like that. Now, I'm going to take these 2 pieces and flip them like this. And what I want you to do is take a look at this. Now, the grain is a really nice match there, so I'm not particularly worried about that. However, if you take a look here, you'll notice that the figure runs diagonal to the grain. And because of that, I might want to go and do this. That way the figure runs up, down, and I still have a nice grain match along the edge. I'm going to go with this and tape it up, and I'll show you that right now. So here I have my veneer strips arranged in the pattern that I want them in. I'm going to take them and flip them over, keeping them in the same arrangement. Now what I'm going to do now is tape across each joint, making sure it's nice and tight. Then I'm going to tape along each joint, and that's just there to make sure that the glue I'm going to put in later doesn't seep through and get all over my bench. I'm going to fast forward through all this stuff. So after taping, I'm left with this on the top, a nice little floppy thing. And what I can do is open up these joints and just spread a bead of glue. And yes, this is Elmer's glue. I like it because of the applicator tip, and it works just fine. That was not pretty. Anyway, after I do that, I'll close it up and place it flat on my bench, and then I'll grab a piece or a couple pieces of blue tape and just go ahead and tape it down on my bench. And what that'll do is ensure that things stay flat while this sucker dries. You may have noticed when I was taping it that it was curling up, and that's because I like to keep my joints nice and tight. So this helps keep things nice and flat. You may have noticed I have another panel here prepared. You also may have noticed I'm wearing Christmas themed pajama pants, even though it's August, but they're comfortable in August. The reason why is because whenever you're making a veneer panel, and I'm going to be gluing this onto some Baltic birch plywood, you need to glue some veneer on the other side. It doesn't have to be the same veneer, it just has to be roughly the same thickness, and what that does is make sure that this piece of plywood stays balanced and doesn't get all out of whack. That's why it's nice and flat. If you put veneer on one side and not on the other, you're gonna mess up the balance and it will go out of flat. It will. All right, so these have been drying for a while and they're probably about ready. So I'm gonna go ahead and take these off the bench. Now, what I can do is start taking the tape off the back of these, and at that point, I basically have a veneer panel right here, and I can go and use this in marquetry if I want to. In this case, I'm not going to. So what I'll do is get both of these all untaped, and then I'll grab a piece of plywood, which will be my substrate. Now, in this case, I use 16th inch thick veneers, and I'm going to use 1/8 inch thick Baltic birch plywood, which is actually 1/8 of an inch thick. So if I have 1/8 inch thick Baltic birch plywood plus 2 16th inch thick veneers, I'm going to end up with a 1/4 inch thick panel, which is going to make routing that groove a lot easier because I have a 1/4 inch router. So here I am getting ready to glue everything up. I'm marking a line on both sides of that piece of plywood, and that's just a center line that will help me place both of those veneer panels. Spreading glue on one side of that piece of plywood and then placing that panel down, pressing hard, then glue on the other side, and I'm gonna press that other veneer panel down there hard too. Now what I'm gonna do is put a little blue tape, and this is just gonna keep those veneer sheets from shifting when I clamp everything down. Now I'm putting it in between 2 pieces of OSB and just clamping everything down, and I'll wait a little bit. So after about 30 minutes, I took the clamps off and took this out of that OSB sandwich, and this is what I'm left with. You can obviously notice I started with a piece of Baltic birch plywood that is much bigger than both of these sheets of veneer. The reason for that is it just makes it easier to work with, honestly. Now I need to trim this thing to size, and you may notice that is going to be a bit of a challenge, but not really. What I'll do is take this and put it just right down on a shooting board and use a plane. Any plane will work, but I have a shooting plane, and I'll just keep planing any edge, doesn't matter which one, until I have a nice straight reference edge. Then I can go over to the bandsaw, table saw, whatever you use to trim things, and use that reference edge to turn this thing into a square. And that's pretty much it. So after establishing a reference edge, I just squared this up at the bandsaw and back at the shooting board, sanded it up, and put a little wax on it. And there I have a nice panel for that box that is way more interesting than just a piece of plywood. And all it took was a turning blank and a little bit of preparation.